Save Myself podcast. My name is Matthew Miniman, and this is episode 27. Printers. Why though? Toronto Maple Leafs in the playoffs. Tom and Jerry. Autobots and Decepticons. Clowns and children. Some rivalries just span the test of time. And so do IT people and printers. If you talk to any IT person, you will, and ask them about printers, you may end up getting a diatribe on just how terrible of a technology printers are. You might get a rant, but in the end, nobody's going to tell you they like printers. There's a joke within IT that if you want to know who sucks at IT, just find a printer guy, because printer guys are IT people that couldn't cut it. That's just, printers are the bane of the IT professional, the IT department's existence. They are just terrible. And we're going to kind of explore why that is, why printers suck so bad, and what we can do about this. So, printers are, if you're not aware, hopefully sometime in the future, if you're listening to this, you're like, what the fuck is a printer? And printers are a physical device that uses a medium to imprint text or images onto paper. And it is they typically do this through a process of either ink sublimation or direct wet ink layout and things like that. And the paper goes through specific channels within the printer, and when the printer is done, it spits it out, and then you grab it, and boom, you have a piece of paper that has all the information that you needed to print on it. And it's fucking great if you're a 1920s businessman. But in modern times, it's kind of useless, because we have so many other ways to transfer data than to print that shit out. So, printers, how do they work? What is the process? So when you connect a printer to a computer, the computer will identify it, and it typically identifies it as a printer. And now modern printers or modern operating systems will install a default driver, typically provided by the operating system OS, and it's just a base driver for that printer. And in Windows, the way this works is it's the print driver basically generates a default type of raw data that every printer can ingest. It's a single type of data creation. Anyways, the print process will then, when you attempt to print something, it will go through the driver and end up in a spooler, where it will sit there and wait until the printer is ready for the job. And then once the printer is ready for the job, the data gets sent. And then once the data is sent, the printer does its thing to it, where it identifies what it's supposed to print and where. And then hopefully, if all goes well, it will process the print job by pulling the paper in and print the page based off of the coordinates that are in the raw document. And it's all basically grid document or grid lines that's basing that off of. Now, those grid lines are DPI, basically digital pixels per square inch, and it is a lot of printers have a very fine control over that. Back when it was dot matrix, it would be it'd be a whole, just, that's where you get these block letters that kind of look like they're a computer screen, because it's very much big, broad coordinates and not these fine coordinates that we have on printers today. Anyways, So that's the whole process that print job goes through, from basically I'm gonna print it from my computer to I now have a piece of paper in my hand of the image that I get. Where all of the problems come into play is everywhere down the line. And a lot of it is attributed to the fact that a lot of the problems that we face with printers is attributed to the fact that no manufacturer, no set of manufacturers can agree on a fucking standard. So nobody has been able to be like, okay, this is the standard that we're going to follow. No, nobody's really done that. I mean, they have a standard that they all can follow, this XPS, but none of them really implement it 100%. They all kind of half-ass it. So when you're printing to a page and you may have a particular problem with it, they that it might be because their XPS translation hasn't been done correctly, and you need to install their actual drivers on there. Which, okay, I need to install the actual drivers of the printer onto a system. Okay, that kind of makes sense, but universal drivers are supposed to be universal for a fucking reason. Anyway, the other problems that you might run into is that if you print, the page may look different than what it does on the screen. And part of this is because printers as a feature, or as a space saving, time saving feature, don't pull in the text like as you see it. They see the text and they create basically the ones and zeros of the text, but the font is decided by the printer, because basically to save space, they don't translate the text, they don't translate that font across the traffic. They pull it in, and they pull in just what the text says and then process whatever font it thinks that is supposed to be. And so your page can look drastically different from what you've attempted to print if your printer is just doing this for you. So that's one of the other problems. And these are all problems on the digital side. But with a printer, you also have problems with the processing side. So, if your printer decides to try to pick up a piece of paper, the way that a lot of printers do this is that there's a sensor that attempts to identify whether or not there's a piece of paper underneath it. This sensor is essentially just a resistance. It's just a resistance sensor. So when it comes into contact with paper, it's supposed to be able to expect a very specific resistance for paper. And when it doesn't receive that expected resistance, it will tell you that there's no paper there, even though the other sensor that identifies how much paper is in the tray is telling it that there's paper there. And so what the worst possible thing that happens is that this sensor, it looks just like a little rubber stamp on a roller. This sensor is covered with a very, very thin line of dust, and that prevents it from identifying or from receiving the proper resistance. And your printer will sit there and spin and spin and spin and act like it's going to print, but then never start the job and tell you that it's out of paper. And it's because of the sensor. It's an easy fix because all you have to do is go wipe that fucking sensor. But the printer will not tell you that that's what the problem is. It'll just say out of paper because it's not smart enough to know that it's covered in dust, which is really fucking fun. Another thing that can happen is the gears can get dirty. The gears are inset in such a way that they are completely exposed to the printing process. So all of these transportation gears are exposed out to the printing process. So say you have a small child or a coworker who acts like a small child, and they get upset and jam a piece of paper in there or something akin to that, and a tiny fragment of paper gets stuck in the gearing mechanisms. Well, that will now cause issues for the entire life of that printer, because it will it will add just an additional resistance to the gears. which can set off the timing of the whole process and kind of break things from the inside. And even if you have a tech come out and fix your printer, well, printer techs are like car mechanics. Some of them are really great. There's a lot of them that suck, and they will forget to put a spring in, or forget to put something back in, or forget to lube the gears, and it'll just end up breaking your printer even more, and you'll end up having this printer that just never fucking works, and you can never understand why. So that's another kind of thing that goes wrong with printers. And then, that's aside from the software of the printer, that it was laid out by an insane person who doesn't understand how UIs are supposed to work, or understand what aspects of printing users actually have or want to use. And so they create this long, crazy fucking labyrinth of a menu system to get to the usable item, to set the page size, or to set the orientation, or to set that I want this page to be collated, or whatever. They create this huge fucking UI storm that then makes it difficult for the users to use. It's simple as that. So, all that being said, these are the things that suck with printers, and there's probably a list of other things, and it's a problem with every IT professional. If you ask, like I said at the top, if you ask any IT professional, if you ask your IT person how they feel about printers, you're probably not going to get a very positive answer, because printers are just terrible. And from the perspective of technology, we shouldn't be using printers. And that's what we can do. We can do our best to stop using printers. Having to submit paper documents for anything we are beyond that now. We no longer need to print out documents, because we can send documents as PDFs, and we need to get out of this addiction to paper that we have, paper and ink. I mean, one other problem with printers is the cost of ink, is the cost of toner. HP has been getting shit for so long because their ink costs like 30 times the amount of it costs 30 times the amount for ink than it does for like oil. It is an insane amount of cost for ink. Now, I understand there's probably a different process for processing ink, and there's probably a reason why they feel like they need to charge so much. But really, it looks like a fucking cash grab. That's all it looks like, especially when, like, for a toner printer, toner is still fucking expensive. But for 5,000 pages of toner, I can spend $150 and print for forever, for the fucking life of my printer. I will never have to buy another toner. But with fucking ink, man, I have to buy ink like every 30 pages. And that is an insane cost for something that shouldn't exist in the first place. So the cost of ink is that's just another fucking problem with printers. Now, the primary reason why IT professionals just really can't stand printers is that we are expected to know everything about every piece of technology. And we're supposed to support it. And printers are basic machines that have so many things that can go wrong with them that it makes it difficult to support. And I know, whine, woe is me, it's difficult to do my job, but printers make it unnecessarily difficult. If you are I don't know, it's kind of like being a baseball player and they decide that instead of using a baseball bat, you have to use a broomstick. That's kind of what it's like. Or, you now have to make a burger, But instead of just putting on or just cooking the burger, you have to use a lighter to do it. It's you're reducing the you're increasing the difficulty for seemingly no reason. Because there's so many other reasons, so many other things that we can do, that we can process that data, that we can send that data through. And the only reason that we have to print is because that's just legacy. We've been doing that for forever, and we need to get out of it. I've had a lot of users who are addicted to paper, and one of the things that they'll do is they will a lot of my users will print out a document and sign it and then scan it back in to their computer to then email out, which is absolutely fucking insane. You can sign it right on your computer, PDF, Word document, whatever. You can sign this fucking document without having to print it out. And you don't like your digital signature? Go buy yourself a fucking tablet and create your signature in Adobe so that way you have it, and then you can digitally sign everything with your actual fucking signature if you want it so goddamn pretty. Anyway, that's another issue with printers, is that you have these people, and don't want to be ageist here, but fucking boomers just cannot get over their addiction to this to this paper. And I honestly feel like that is the problem, is that you have all of these legacy people who feel like paper needs to be involved when it absolutely does not. So what are other things we could do about this? Well, implementing a universal document exchange system where documents can be converted into and out of specific types would be beneficial. One of the reasons that people feel like they need to print things out is because Adobe Acrobat, which is kind of the universal standard for PDFs, does not allow you to modify documents in a specific way. And if somebody hasn't created a document in a very specific format, it makes it harder to sign. It makes it harder to fill out. And so I get the temptation to want to print that out and then sign it. But we have to resist. But technology companies have to do better to make documents more accessible to more people. Chrome and Edge and Firefox have all tried to do a good job in making their browsers compatible with PDF documents or other documents, but they miss the mark on that aspect of making it so that they can be filled out in the browser. And that is a barrier of entry for a lot of people. I have to use a third application to sign this document. No, thank you. I'll just print it. And so we have to do better there. Where we also have to do better is we have to make sure that we're not requiring physical copies of documents in our processes. I mean, for fuck's sake, if I have to fax something into you, your technology stack does not inspire me, and I'm probably going to stop doing business with you, just flat out. Fuck you, because fax is the technology that should no longer exist. That's why we have email. So if you're not prepared to receive digital documents, you need to fix that, and because otherwise you're going to be left behind. You're going to be forgotten. Other things that we can do are to start thinking about different ways to process documents. So intaking of data, making sure that our websites are set up to take in data, and changing those processes. The one place where I know I have where I sign the most paperwork is in medical systems. We need to fix that, because every medical doctor's office that I've walked into, I have to fill out documentation every fucking time I walk in the door. And I have to fill it out on a piece of paper. If you just gave me a link to your website where I could log in on my phone and just sign the documentation and fill it out, that would be, so much fucking better. Plus, then I wouldn't have to waste my time writing down information that is pretty much static. So those are a lot of the reasons why, or a lot of the ways that we can resolve printers and get rid of them. And if we absolutely have to have printers, if you actually have to have it for whatever reason, and I can see that for things like if you go and get your car worked on, you want the mechanic to print you out a report. You want that physical copy to walk out the door. Maybe you don't want to give somebody your email for them to provide you with data. All of these things I can completely understand. And so for these reasons, printers should exist. But if we reduce the ways we need to have printers, we'll also reduce the problems that printers create. And so the other things that we can do to resolve these printer issues are, one, we need to make printers enclosed. We need to make sure that the gearing system of printers is isolated away from the printing process. There should be no way that a piece of paper gets jammed enough that the gears can be gummed up by the paper. There should be no way that a piece of paper or ink or anything else should be able to get into the gearing mechanisms of a printer. That should just be flat out. Two, the cost of ink should not be as high as it is. There should be no reason that a 20-page batch of ink should cost $60. There should be no reason why paper should be created in such a way that it just fucking eats up a printer. And you know, as a society, we should understand that printers should not be used for just everything. We need to stop relying and stop requiring things to be in paper, and that we have to print those things. And I know I'm saying this because IT professionals hate supporting printers, but in all, it is something that will help society. Because things like HIPAA and PCI, DSS, all of these things are these standards and rules and regulations. Paper makes these things harder. Paper makes these things more difficult. And breaches, quote unquote breaches, information compromise occurs because people don't handle paper appropriately. We have entire fucking industries based around the proper destruction of paper documents, which is insane considering that we've had email for over 50 years. Anyways, I hope you guys have a great day.